Humble Home, a luxurious cafe renowned for its refined ambiance and top-tier service, was bathed in soft morning light streaming through large glass windows. The rich aroma of Arabica coffee filled the air, mingling with the gentle clinking of silverware against porcelain plates, creating a soothing background melody for the bustling morning crowd. Businessmen, couples, and groups of friends sat around polished mahogany tables, chatting enthusiastically yet maintaining the poised decorum typical of the upper class. David Sullivan, a self-made millionaire, sat by the window where the sunlight glinted off the face of his expensive Swiss watch. His navy blue suit, perfectly tailored, complemented the silver cufflinks sparkling subtly under the light, adjusting them meticulously. His gaze swept across the cafe with quiet satisfaction. This was no ordinary morning. Today marked a significant milestone. He and his closest friend and business partner, Ryan Carter, were on the verge of closing one of the biggest deals of their careers, a multi-million-dollar contract that would not only secure the company's financial future, but also solidify their dominance in the competitive market. Everything seemed perfect. Yet beneath the glossy surface, a silent storm was brewing. "Ryan, I'll be right back. Just need to use the restroom," David spoke, his deep voice calm and confident. Rising from the cream leather chair, he straightened his suit. Ryan, engrossed in his phone, gave a distracted nod, barely acknowledging David's words as he scrolled through his screen. David walked away, feeling the weight of his accomplishments. Years of relentless work had brought him here. From the challenging days of their startup, he and Ryan had built this empire together. Now, they were on the cusp of their greatest success. Yet, while David was away, the atmosphere at their table shifted. Emily, a young waitress, approached to refill their glasses. She wore a neat black apron, her brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, and her delicate face calm as usual. She had been working at Humble Home for a few months, always professional and reserved, rarely involving herself in the affairs of the high-profile clientele. But today, something felt different. Ryan took a call, speaking in hushed tones. As Emily poured water into his glass, she inadvertently overheard fragments of his conversation. What she heard made her freeze. "Everything is set. David has no idea. Once this deal is signed, I'll have complete control. The company, the assets, everything will be mine. By the time he figures it out, it'll be too late. I've been planning this for months." Her hand trembled, nearly spilling the water. Her heart raced. Had she heard correctly? Ryan Carter, the man everyone believed to be David's closest friend, was plotting to betray him? She retreated quietly into the kitchen, her mind spinning. Should she say something? She was just a waitress. This had nothing to do with her. Why get involved in the lives of these wealthy men? But her conscience wouldn't stay silent. A good man was about to be deceived by the person he trusted most. David returned to the table, unaware of what had transpired. Ryan greeted him with a smile, but something lingered behind his eyes. From a distance, Emily watched, torn between duty and fear. She knew she couldn't stay silent. When Ryan stepped outside for another phone call, Emily realized this might be her only chance. Taking a deep breath, clutching her cleaning cloth tightly, she approached David's table. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Excuse me, I need to tell you something." David looked up, surprised. It was unusual for staff here to speak directly to him. "Yes? What is it?" Emily hesitated, her throat dry, but there was no turning back. She whispered, "I overheard something. You need to know." David frowned, leaning slightly forward. "What do you mean?" "Your friend, Ryan, I think he's planning to betray you." Her voice was soft but urgent. "I overheard his phone call. He said once the deal is signed, he will take over the entire company and leave you with nothing." David blinked, stunned. Her words were too sudden, too unbelievable. Ryan? His closest friend and most trusted partner? It couldn't be true. "Are you sure?" "Did you hear it clearly?" Emily nodded, her eyes sincere. "I swear I'm not making this up. I couldn't let you sign that contract without knowing the truth." David fell silent, his gaze shifting to the glass window where Ryan was still on his call. His mind raced. Could it be possible? Was his oldest friend truly conspiring against him? Or had Emily simply misunderstood? "Thank you for telling me this," he whispered, his voice laced with doubt yet gratitude. Emily nodded, retreating as David remained lost in thought. He stared at the contract on the table, the certainty he had felt just minutes ago, now completely shattered. If what Emily said was true, signing this deal could be the biggest mistake of his life. When Ryan returned, flashing his usual charming smile, David realized something chilling. He could no longer trust anyone, not even his best friend. David had just returned from his conversation with Emily, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. The young waitress had warned him of a betrayal being plotted by his closest friend, Ryan, and the revelation left him deeply unsettled. Ryan's silence when questioned only amplified David's unease. He couldn't continue living under the shadow of such doubt. Yet, in that brief moment, he knew he couldn't rely on feelings alone. He needed the truth. Therefore, David chose not to make any rash decisions. He told Ryan he needed more time to think, though in his heart, a decision had already been made. He would investigate thoroughly. David spoke in a calm tone, but his words were measured. "I just want to make sure everything is in order. It never hurts to double check." Ryan, sitting across from him, responded with a slight smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. There was something else there. Disappointment, irritation, or perhaps even fear. David couldn't be certain, but the subtle shift in Ryan's expression only deepened his suspicions. "Of course," Ryan replied smoothly. "Whatever you need. But I really think we're in a great position here. This deal could change everything for us." David nodded, forcing a smile. "Exactly. That's why I need to be sure." Ryan leaned back slightly, adopting a posture of nonchalance, but David could sense a shift, an underlying tension masked by his overconfidence, a quiet reminder that something felt off. "Take your time, David," Ryan said, his gaze narrowing slightly. "But don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't come around often." David gave a small nod, though his mind was already made up. No signature would touch that contract until he uncovered the full truth. "I'll give you an answer soon," he said firmly. As David stood and exited the cafe, Ryan remained seated, still holding his polite smile. Yet David couldn't shake the feeling that their friendship, once solid, was beginning to crack. The cool evening air brushed against David's face as he stepped outside. The golden glow of the streetlights cast long shadows along the sidewalk. Near the entrance, Emily stood nervously, her hands clasped together, her expression filled with worry. When she noticed David, she bit her lower lip, her eyes locking onto his face. "Did you talk to Ryan yet?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. David exhaled, hesitant to reveal too much. "I haven't signed anything yet, but I need to dig deeper first." Relief washed over Emily's face, her shoulders visibly relaxing. "I was so worried. I didn't know if you'd believe me." David studied her carefully. Why had she risked so much for a stranger? "Why did you tell me, Emily?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the ground. I know it wasn't my place. I'm just a waitress. But when I overheard what he said, I couldn't stay silent. Something felt wrong." The sincerity in her voice struck David. She had nothing to gain from this, yet she had risked her job to warn him. "I truly appreciate it. Emily, you may have saved me from making a huge mistake." Her cheeks flushed, and she shifted awkwardly. I'm just glad I could help." David nodded, but he knew this warning wasn't enough. He needed proof. "I'm going to hire someone to investigate. I can't make any decisions until I know for sure." Emily seemed relieved. "That's smart. I hope I was wrong. For your sake." David gave her a small smile. "So do I." As he walked away, David pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts. There was only one person he trusted to uncover the truth: Julian, a private investigator he had worked with on sensitive business matters in the past. He dialed the number. "Julian, it's David Sullivan. I need your help." Julian's voice responded with professional calm. "What's going on, David?" Over the next few minutes, David detailed everything: the conversation with Emily, her warning, and his growing suspicions. Julian listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "I understand," Julian finally replied. I'll start digging right away. I'll need a few days to look into Ryan's financials. I'll contact you as soon as I have something concrete." David ended the call, feeling both relieved and weighed down. He had taken the first step, but now, the hardest part was just beginning. The next few days passed in a state of restless tension. Every time David met with Ryan, whether for business discussions or board meetings, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Ryan's excessive confidence, his subtle, ambiguous remarks. Yet if Ryan was hiding something, he was doing it masterfully. On the third evening, when David was nearing the limits of his patience, Julian called. "David, I found something. Not much, but it could be a lead." David straightened immediately. "What did you find?" "There have been some suspicious transactions in Ryan's personal accounts. A series of wire transfers to offshore accounts, not illegal on their own. But the timing aligns suspiciously with the start of your contract negotiations." David's heart tightened. "How much are we talking about?" "Not a massive sum, but enough to raise questions. I'm still digging deeper." David closed his eyes, the heaviness in his chest growing stronger. Ryan was indeed hiding something. And if Julian was right, this was worse than David had initially feared. "Keep digging." "Julian, I need solid proof." "I will. I'll update you soon." David set the phone down, staring out the large window of his home office. The city lights glittered in the distance, but they did little to calm the storm building within him. The man who had once stood beside him, helping build this empire, was betraying him. That night, when David met Ryan for a scheduled dinner, his heart was already clouded with suspicion. Ryan appeared as cheerful and relaxed as ever, speaking enthusiastically about new projects, but David could no longer see him the same way. "So how's the deal looking, David?" Ryan asked casually. David met his gaze directly. "I'm still reviewing it. I need more time to decide." Ryan's eyes narrowed just slightly, but his smile remained. "Don't wait too long, buddy." David nodded, but deep inside he knew this friendship, this trust, it would never be the same again. The next morning, David woke up with a heavy weight pressing on his chest, the tension from his last dinner with Ryan lingering. The details kept replaying in his mind. The forced smiles, the calculated reassurances, the subtle impatience. How long had Ryan been planning this? David found it impossible to focus on anything else. His thoughts were consumed by the betrayal of the man who had once been his closest ally, now potentially his greatest enemy. By noon, Julian called again. David's pulse quickened as he answered, hoping for clarity amid his growing fears. "David, I've uncovered something significant," Julian began, his voice calm yet urgent. "I believe we're dealing with a fully orchestrated scheme." David sat up straighter, his heart pounding. "What did you find?" "There's a pattern of suspicious transactions over the past year. Ryan has been funneling company funds out in small increments, just below the threshold that would trigger internal red flags. Altogether, he siphoned nearly $5 million into an offshore account. It's incredibly difficult to trace, but we caught it just in time." David felt the ground shift beneath him. $5 million? Yes, but there's more. I've also found communication records linking Ryan to several of your business rivals. It seems he's positioning himself to seize control of the company once this deal is finalized. If you sign that contract, you'll be handing him complete control. David felt as though ice was flooding his veins. Ryan wasn't just stealing. He had been meticulously planning this betrayal for a year, hiding it right under David's nose. Julian's voice remained professional but firm. "David, you need to act immediately. This isn't just a mistake. It's deliberate corporate fraud. If you don't stop him now, he will proceed." David gripped the edge of his desk. "What do I do?" "First, freeze all accounts linked to these transactions. We have enough evidence to justify that action. Then, confront Ryan. But be careful. Don't reveal everything we know just yet." David nodded sharply. "I'll contact my legal team now. I need to secure the company before I deal with him directly." "Good. I'll send you all the documents I've compiled so far. You'll have everything you need for legal action." The call ended, leaving David motionless in his chair, staring blankly at the ceiling. The weight of betrayal pressed heavier than ever. Ryan, the friend he'd trusted completely, had not only stolen from him, but had been plotting for a year, biding his time like a snake. Anger simmered beneath David's surface, but he knew he had to stay composed. This wasn't just personal. Ryan had become a dangerous adversary. Emotion couldn't cloud his judgment. Immediately, David contacted his legal team, explaining everything Julian had uncovered. His lawyers acted swiftly, drafting the necessary paperwork to freeze the compromised accounts and ensure Ryan could no longer access company funds. But David knew this was just the beginning. Confronting Ryan face to face would be a battle of its own. That evening, David arranged to meet Ryan in a private office space they often used for sensitive discussions. A neutral, professional setting, perfect for what was about to unfold. Ryan arrived on time. As always, his usual confident demeanor was intact, the charming smile plastered on his face. "David, I think we're close to finalizing the deal." David, standing near the desk, gestured toward the chair across from him. "We need to talk." Ryan's smile faltered just slightly, but he sat down, the tension in the room palpable. David stared directly into his eyes. "I know everything, Ryan. The offshore accounts, the stolen funds, the plans you've made behind my back." Ryan's face paled, but he quickly composed himself. "What are you talking about? You're letting paranoia get the better of you." David's voice was steady but cold. "I hired a private investigator. We have the records, transactions, communications with our competitors. You've been lying to me for over a year." Ryan's composure cracked further, his smile turning strained. "David, you're overreacting. This is a misunderstanding." David shook his head. "I've frozen all the accounts connected to your theft. You can't touch another dollar. It's over." Ryan shot up from his chair, face twisting with anger. "You can't do this. You'll regret this." David remained unshaken, meeting his former friend's glare with calm determination. "The only thing I regret is trusting you." Ryan stormed out, leaving David alone in the silent office. The confrontation had ended, but the aftermath would linger. Betrayal had left its mark, but David had taken the first step in protecting everything he had built. As the tension settled, the office door opened gently. Emily stepped inside, her face etched with concern as she had been waiting outside, sensing the gravity of the situation. She approached cautiously, her hands clasped in front of her. "David?" she asked softly. He looked up, exhaustion and resolve mingling in his expression. "It's done. Ryan's gone." Emily hesitated, then sat down across from him. "I'm so sorry," she whispered with genuine empathy. David nodded slowly. "I should have seen it coming. I trusted him and he betrayed me." Emily reached out, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "You did the right thing. David, you stopped him before it was too late." He took a deep breath, the burden slowly lifting. "Because of you." Emily's cheeks flushed as she shook her head. "I just did what anyone would do. I couldn't let him hurt you." David offered her a warm smile. "Not everyone would have done what you did. Most people would have stayed silent, thinking it wasn't their business. But you took a risk, and you saved me from the worst mistake of my life." Her blush deepened, but she remained humble. "I only did what I felt was right." David's smile softened, gratitude welling up. "I want to do something for you in return. I know from our conversations that you had to leave school to care for your mother. I want to help you finish your education, if that's still something you want." Emily's eyes widened, her breath catching. You'd help me go back to school?" David nodded. "I know you're passionate about economics. I believe in your potential. I want to make sure you have the chance to finish what you started. And if you're open to it, I'd also like to offer you a position at my company. You've proven you have great instincts, and I could use someone like you on my team." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, her voice trembling. "I don't know how to thank you. This means more than I can say." David rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to thank me. Just take this opportunity and make the most of it. I believe in you." Emily nodded, her expression now filled with determination. "I will, I promise." David stood up, feeling a sense of relief as he felt he had repaid the debt he owed Emily. As he reached the door, he turned back to look at her. "I'll have my team reach out to you regarding the details. But for now, focus on taking care of your mother and thinking about what you want to do next." Emily smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I will never forget this." David gave her one last nod before stepping outside. The cool evening air greeted him, carrying with it a sense of closure. For the first time since Ryan's betrayal, He felt as though he was truly moving forward. Emily's courage had changed everything for him, and now he had given her the chance to change her life as well. It wasn't just about repaying a debt. It was about helping someone who had stood by him when he needed it most. More than anything, it brought David a sense of peace. The days following David's visit to Emily's home were a whirlwind of change for both of them. Emily spent most of her time reflecting on the opportunity David had offered. Returning to school had always been a distant dream, since she had put her education on hold to care for her mother. Now, that dream suddenly felt within reach, and the possibility of working at David's company seemed like a chance she had never even dared to imagine. Though she was excited, there was hesitation as well. Emily had grown used to staying in the background, avoiding attention. She had always been the type to help quietly, never expecting anything in return. Now, she was being offered a gateway into a completely new world, one that both thrilled and terrified her. Meanwhile, David had spoken to his team to ensure everything was in place for Emily to begin working at the company whenever she was ready. He wanted to give her space to consider the decision carefully. He knew it wasn't something she could be rushed into, but deep down, he was confident she would accept. He had seen the spark of ambition in her eyes. She was capable of great things. He was sure of it. A week later, Emily made her decision. David was reviewing documents in his office when his assistant buzzed in. "Mr. Sullivan, Emily Adams is here to see you." A surge of anticipation filled him. He had been waiting for her response. The door opened, and Emily stepped in, looking slightly nervous but determined. David stood up, offering a warm smile. "Emily, it's so good to see you," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "How have you been feeling?" Emily sat down, clasping her hands together in her lap. "I've thought a lot about your offer," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "And I've decided I want to accept both the opportunity to return to school and the position at your company." David's smile widened. "I'm so glad to hear that. I knew you'd make the right choice." Emily exhaled softly, as if she had been holding her breath. "Honestly, it feels a bit overwhelming." "I never imagined being in a situation like this." David nodded, understanding her hesitation. "I know it's a big step, but you've proven you have what it takes. Your instincts are remarkable, and with your background in economics, I believe you'll bring a fresh perspective to the team. As for school, we'll make sure you have the flexibility to balance both." Emily offered a grateful smile. "Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I truly appreciate this opportunity." David leaned forward slightly, his expression sincere but encouraging. "I want you to know this isn't just about repaying a favor. I see real potential in you. Emily, you've shown grace and intelligence under pressure. I believe with the right support, you can thrive here." Emotion swelled in Emily's chest at his words. She had always been a hard worker, but no one had ever expressed such unwavering belief in her abilities. It was both inspiring and daunting, yet David's trust gave her the strength to push past her self-doubt. "I won't let you down," she said, her voice filled with quiet determination. David's smile grew warmer. "I have no doubt about that. We'll begin the enrollment process for your studies, and in the meantime, we can start integrating you into the company. You'll be assigned a mentor to help you settle in, and I'll always be available for guidance whenever you need it." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one filled with endless possibilities. The fear lingered, but so did the excitement. As the hours passed, David worked closely with his legal team and Julian's investigators, preparing for anything Ryan might throw at him. Despite their best efforts, there was no way to predict exactly what Ryan had planned. The uncertainty weighed heavily on David, making it difficult to focus on anything else. That evening, as David sat alone in his office, Emily gently knocked on the door. She hesitated for a moment before asking softly, "Are you okay?" David exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Ryan, he's back, and he's threatening to expose something damaging. I don't know what he's planning, but it could be bad." Emily's face fell, her expression filled with concern. "I thought he was gone for good." "So did I," David replied, his voice steady but clearly carrying the weight of regret. He had underestimated Ryan. Emily sat across from him, her gaze searching his face. "Is there anything I can do to help?" David looked at her, feeling a wave of gratitude for her loyalty. She had been by his side through everything, and now, more than ever, he needed people he could trust. "Just keep doing what you've been doing," he finally said. "I'm handling it, but I may need your support if things get worse." Emily nodded firmly, her expression resolute. "You can count on me, David. No matter what happens, we'll get through this together." David offered a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Emily. That means more than you know." As Emily left the office, David leaned back in his chair, staring out at the dark city skyline. Ryan might have returned with vengeance on his mind, but David was determined. He wouldn't let him win this time. He was ready for whatever came next. The tension in the air remained thick in the days following Ryan's threat. David struggled to sleep, his mind consumed with the looming question of what Ryan was planning. Every morning he scanned the news, bracing for a potential scandal, yet nothing surfaced. It was as if Ryan was playing a waiting game, letting the anxiety eat away at David's peace of mind. Julian and his team worked tirelessly, digging for any trace of Ryan's movements. Eventually, they tracked a suspicious video leak to a small, unnamed hotel on the outskirts of the city. Julian had sent a team to investigate, but Ryan had already checked out. He was being cautious. On a daily briefing call, Julian reported, "He's not staying anywhere for long. It means he knows we're tracking him." The frustration only grew as more days passed, with no sign of a breakthrough. Ryan had disappeared again, but his looming threat remained a shadow over David's life. Even within the office, the tension disrupted the usual workflow. Emily kept everything running smoothly, but David could see the worry on her face every time she glanced in his direction. One evening, as David sat alone in his office, poring over the endless reports from Julian's team, his phone buzzed on the desk. It was Julian. "We've got something," Julian said, his voice calm but with a trace of relief. David straightened, his pulse quickening. "Ryan slipped up? What do you mean?" "We intercepted a message Ryan tried to send to a media outlet. He was attempting to sell a fabricated story about you. Completely false, half-truths mixed with outright lies. Looks like he's getting desperate to push something out before anyone can verify the facts." A wave of both relief and anger washed over David. "So, he's making things up now?" "Exactly," Julian confirmed. "He's claiming you were involved in financial misconduct, illegal dealings with foreign firms and offshore accounts. All fabricated, smoke and mirrors to make it sound convincing." David exhaled slowly, the knot in his chest loosening just slightly. "Can we stop him?" "We already have," Julian replied. "We've reached out to the media contacts he approached and got ahead of the story. We've prepared a counter-narrative with solid evidence, proof of his betrayal, the stolen funds, the offshore accounts he used. This will completely discredit anything he tries to say about you." David nodded, feeling some of the tension finally easing from his shoulders. "And Ryan? Can we stop him from trying this again?" "That's the other part of the good news," Julian said. "We now have enough evidence to move forward with legal action. The frozen accounts, financial records, and his attempt at defamation, it's a solid case. We can take him down both legally and publicly." David sank back into his chair, the stress of the past few days finally beginning to lift. "So, it's over? We can finally end this?" "Yes," Julian said firmly. "We'll make sure he faces consequences." The call ended, and David sat in silence for a long moment. A profound sense of relief washed over him. Ryan had thrown everything he could to destroy him, but in the end, his lies had crumbled. David had weathered the storm, and now the tables had turned. Later that evening, after receiving the news from Julian, David stood at his office window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Though Ryan's schemes had been exposed, David knew the damage wasn't entirely undone. Trust had been shattered, and the scars of betrayal lingered. It was in that quiet reflection that he realized something. Beyond the victories in business, beyond the contracts and financial wins, what truly mattered were the people who stood by you when everything was on the line. People like Emily, who had been unwavering in her support, even when it wasn't her fight. David turned his gaze toward Emily's desk just outside his office. She had been his anchor during this chaos, keeping the office together, protecting him from distractions, standing firm when the weight of betrayal had nearly crushed him. And now it was time to recognize that strength. stepping into the open space where she sat reviewing files. His voice carried a rare softness, laced with admiration. She looked up, a bit surprised by his serious tone. "You've shown not just me, but everyone in this company, that you have what it takes," he continued. "You've been a key part of helping us stay grounded, and I can't think of anyone better suited for this next step." Emily blinked, confused. "Next step?" David nodded, smiling. "I'd like to offer you a leadership role here. You've proven your integrity, loyalty, and instincts, qualities we need to keep moving forward. You've earned this." Emily, tears welled in her eyes and she opened her mouth to speak but hesitated. I don't know what to say." David's expression softened further. "Say yes. You've been here for me during the toughest moments of my career. Let me do the same for you. This company needs people like you. I need people like you." Emily finally nodded, her voice trembling. Yes, I'll do it. And thank you for believing in me." David offered a warm, proud smile. "You've more than earned it." "Emily, welcome to your next chapter." In that moment, Emily was speechless. She had started as a waitress, warning David about a betrayal she had overheard, never expecting anything in return. And now, she was being offered one of the most prestigious positions in the company. "I don't know what to say," she finally whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "This is more than I ever imagined." David smiled, leaning forward slightly. "You've earned all of this, Emily, and I want you to know, this isn't just about what you did for me personally. It's about what you've brought to this company. Your ideas, your innovation, and your leadership have made us better." Tears welled in Emily's eyes and she blinked quickly, trying to hold them back. "I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. I'll do everything I can to prove myself worthy of it." "I have no doubt you will," David said warmly. "And don't worry, you won't be doing it alone. We'll work closely together, just like we have before. I'm excited to see what we can accomplish as a team." Emily nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had worked so hard to reach this point, and now it finally felt like everything was falling into place. This was no longer just a job. It was her future, her career, and her chance to make a real difference. As she stood up to leave, David stopped her with a gentle smile. "One more thing." Emily turned back, curious. "What is it?" "We're having a company celebration next week," David explained. "The entire team will be gathering to celebrate the success of our expansion project. But I'd also like to use the opportunity to officially announce your new role to everyone." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had always preferred working behind the scenes, and the thought of stepping into the spotlight was both terrifying and exhilarating. "I'd be honored," she replied softly, feeling a surge of pride she hadn't expected. David stood as well, extending his hand toward her. "Welcome to the leadership team, Emily." She shook his hand, her smile bright despite the tears threatening to fall. "Thank you, David, for everything." The celebration arrived quickly, and the energy in the company was electric. The event was held in a grand ballroom, with employees from every level attending, new recruits, senior managers, and everyone in between. There was a palpable sense of pride and excitement, knowing the company had weathered Ryan's betrayal and emerged stronger than ever. David took the stage, his commanding presence drawing the attention of everyone in the room. He spoke about the challenges they had faced, the success of their expansion, and the bright future ahead. His words resonated deeply as the entire team reflected on how far they had come together. Then, with a proud smile, David's voice echoed through the hall. "Tonight, I want to recognize someone who has played a vital role in our success. Someone who has demonstrated extraordinary courage, intelligence, and leadership. Emily Adams." The room erupted in applause as David gestured for Emily to join him on stage. Her heart pounded as she made her way up, hands slightly trembling, but she held her head high. This was her moment. "Emily has been an essential part of our growth," David continued, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "And today, I am proud to announce that she will officially step into a permanent leadership role, overseeing our international operations as part of our senior management team." The applause grew even louder, filling the room with thunderous support. Emily felt a wave of pride and gratitude washing over her. She had worked hard for this, but she hadn't done it alone. David had given her the chance, and now she was determined to make the most of it. When she took the microphone, she paused for a brief moment, looking out at the sea of faces, many of whom had become friends and mentors over the past few months. Her voice, though emotional, remained steady. "I just want to say thank you," she began, glancing toward David, the team, and everyone who had supported her along the way. "I never imagined I would be standing here today, but I am so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm excited to continue working with all of you to make this company better every single day." The crowd erupted once more into applause, and Emily smiled, feeling the warmth and support from everyone in the room. This was just the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Emily settled into her new role, quickly proving herself as a capable and respected leader. Her approach was thoughtful, yet decisive, earning the trust of her colleagues and the admiration of the entire company. David remained close by, offering guidance when needed, but trusting her judgment more with each passing day. Their partnership only grew stronger, evolving into a dynamic leadership duo that led the company into a new era of success. Together, they faced challenges head-on, turning obstacles into opportunities. One evening, long after most employees had left the office, Emily stood alone in the quiet halls of the company she now helped lead. She looked out at the city skyline, reflecting on her incredible journey. She had come so far, from a waitress who had once overheard a betrayal to a leader helping shape the future of a global enterprise. And in that quiet moment, she realized something profound. The struggles, the victories, the risks she had taken, it had all taught her one invaluable lesson. Never give up on your dreams. Never let fear stop you. Believe in yourself. Dare to care, and you will receive far more than you ever imagined. Love, persistence, and courage are the keys to unlocking every door life has to offer. To everyone out there chasing their own dreams, never stop. Keep pushing forward. Keep believing. Your breakthrough may be closer than you think. Thank you for being part of this story. Wishing you courage, strength, and endless possibilities wherever your journey takes you. Farewell, and see you again.